Hey there, you 10. So I've got a question for exercise 7B. Exercise 7B. Question 2. Well, one of the first things is you need to know how to read the turning point form. So y equals a bracket x minus h squared plus k. So I've got a class video on that to make sure that you know how to read this first. So make sure to watch that first. Okay, so make sure to watch the class video to know how to read the turning point form first. Whoops, I just did something. Let me just see, what did I do? Whoops. How do I undo? All right, all good. It should be back now. Okay, let's go over here. So first thing is you need to know how to read the turning point form. And now if I were to do question 2, let's have a look at each one. So let's say A. You need to see that in question A, you got y is equal to 2x squared, right? If you compare that to the turning point form, which is a bracket x minus h all squared and then plus k, right? So from here, what we can see is the squaring is you square something. So clearly right here, what am I squaring? I'm squaring the x. If it helps you, draw a bracket around what you're squaring, and clearly 2 must then be my a. Okay, so that's my A. Remember, A represents if it's A is positive, it's going to look like a smiley face. If A is negative, it's going to look like a frown. Okay, whereas this one tells you if it's positive, it goes up, and it goes down if K is negative. In our case, you can see that there is no K, or another way of thinking about it is you're doing adding on 0. So you're not moving up or down, so no up or down. And if you have a look inside the brackets, which is what you're squaring, this is an x. This is x minus h. So that is what you're squaring there, right? And this is meant to tell you, does it move up, left, or right? And the way I taught it in class was I said, whatever you're squaring, let it equal 0. Okay, so in our case here, it would just be x is equal to 0, and it looks like you can't do anything else now that you're solving for x. So it just means no left and no right. It doesn't move left or right. So if you put it all together now, you can look at the graph and you can say, well, this is what the Cartesian plane looks like. Here's my y-axis, here's my x-axis. It doesn't move up or down, so it stays at the center. And it doesn't move left or right, so it still stays at the center, which is at 0, 0, still stays here. And I just know it's a smiley shape. So there's my turning point. It's going to be a smiley shape. And there you go. That's what the shape looks like. But usually in your textbook, they probably want to label a coordinate. So you can just, normally they pick 1. It could be anything, but there's just saying when x is 1, what's the y value? Well, based on the equation, you've got y is equal to 2x squared. So if x was 1, well, we're replacing that x there with a 1, and so it'll be 1 squared, whatever 1 squared is, which is 1, and then times it by 2, and you get 2. So y is equal to 2. So it means that when x is 1, y is 2, and so that's why I know here I write a 2, and that's it. That's for the first one. Now, if you then move on and pick a few other ones that it might be a bit harder, so let's say E, okay, if you wrote E, you'll see that it's got the same pattern again. E's got y equals to x squared plus 2, right? And same thing with the turning point form. We can see that the turning point form is, again, a bracket x minus h squared and then plus k, right? So what are you squaring? So the key thing is this is what determines left or right. Yeah, so this determines left or right. So how do you figure that out? Well, look at this. This is what I'm squaring. I'm squaring the x. So that will determine left or right. So what do? I said again in the class, I said let it equal to 0. So in our case, it's just x equals to 0, which means no left, no right. But notice the number in front of the x squared, which is your a. This is your a there. The number in front of what you're squaring, well, currently, even though you don't see it, technically there should be a 1. So a equals 1, and it's a positive 1, so that means it's a smiley face. And then what's this plus 2? Well, clearly the plus 2 that's separate is based on k. And we said before, it goes up if it's positive, and so it's up by 2. So if I actually sketch this now, let's put it all together. Here's my axes. And starting from the center, which is at 0, 0, right? At 0, 0, I go up by 2. So 1, 2. Here we go. That's my new point. And remember, it doesn't move left or right, so that's pretty much it. It goes up by 2, so 0, 2, and it's a smiley shape. There you go. There's my graph. And you just need to pick another point, and usually in your textbooks, they pick 1. It could have been anything. So if you set x equals 1, so if x equals 1, well, how do you find the y? Use the rule. The rule says here it's x squared plus 2. So substitute 1 in, so you get 1 squared plus 2. And you get 1 plus 2. So that means when you choose x is 1, the y coordinate is 3. And remember, you could choose any x value. It doesn't have to be 1. It's just 1's the easiest one to do, right? So that means you can label this coordinate now and you call it 1, 3. And there we go. That's done. Now, I noticed the 2 examples I just did doesn't move left or right. So let's pick one that actually moves left and right. And I'm going to pick the last one. Okay, so the last one here. Let's say I do L with you now. Let's do L. So we do L. You'll see there's a pattern now. So L is y is equal to negative bracket x minus 3 squared, right? Same thing again. Let's write out our turning point form. So y equals a bracket x minus h squared plus k. You can see here again, what is the thing that we are squaring? Well, I'm squaring this. So what I said in class is I said let what you're squaring, let it equal to 0. So in this case, it's x minus 3 equals 0. Solve for x. So if I solve for x here, that's a minus 3. So opposite of that is plus 3. Negative 3 plus 3 cancels out. And you get x is equal to positive 3. And what does that mean? If it's positive, it moves to the right. So it tells me it's right by 3. Notice here that there is no number. Okay, so it's kind of like saying you're adding on 0. So it means that k, you don't move up or down. So no up, no down. Okay, and then, well, what's a? What's a equal to? Now, I know it doesn't look like there's a number there, but normally we just don't write it. But it's a negative 1. So what's a negative 1 tell me? It's a frown shape. So if I put them all together now, let's put it all together. So here's my axes. Same thing. Here's my x-axis. This is my y-axis. And starting from the center, origin, so moves to the right by 3. So 1, 2, 3. So moves to the right by 3, but doesn't go up or down. So that must mean this is where my turning point is. Right there at 3, 0. And it's a frown. So that means I just draw a frown. And there you go. You get your shape. Now, obviously, in all the shapes here, I haven't calculated the x and y intercept. So here you obviously have to calculate what the y-intercept is. And how do you find the y-intercept? Find y-intercept by letting x equals 0. So in your equation, y equals to bracket x minus 3 squared, or negative. Then if you let x equal to 0, so if x equals 0, you're substituting 0 in. You get y is equal to negative of 0 minus 3 squared. You can use a calculator at this point if you need. 0 take away 3 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared, because we do brackets, indices before multiplication. Negative 3 squared is 9. Don't forget there's a negative on the outside of the brackets. So negative 3 squared is 9, and then that gives you negative 9. So that tells me when x is 0, which is what we've done. So when x is 0, then the y value is negative 9. Okay? And so that means I know this is at 0, negative 9. But that's another thing. So at the moment, you're just learning to read the turning point form. So be mindful, exercise 7B is all about reading the turning point form. Okay? So if I were to read this quickly, h, y equals negative x squared minus 3, what I can see is this is separate from the squaring, so this must be down 3. The negative tells me it's a frown, so it's a negative 1 at the front. And what am I squaring? I'm squaring just the x, so no left and no right. Okay, so if I were to sketch it, it goes down by 3, so down negative 3, it's a frown. There you go, no left or right. Okay, so that question, this exercise here is really just getting you to read a turning point form. Don't mistake that you can do this for all forms. If I gave you y equals 2x squared plus 2x minus 1, you can't read it like that. It has to be in a turning point form. And how do you know you have a turning point form? Literally count the number of x's you have. If you have 2 x's, then it's not turning point form. All of them, if you have a look, they all only have 1 x. So have a look at that. That's x, 1x, 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 1x. That's when you know all of these are turning point forms. Doesn't matter which one you pick. Have a count of number of x's you get. There's only 1 in every equation. That's when you know you have a turning point form. Okay? So that's how you do exercise 7B. And again, if you haven't watched my class video to know how to read left, right, up, down, and then whether it's a frown or not, watch that video first before you watch this video. Okay, so class video is here.